I remember the first time I read the name Assyria. It wasn't just a kingdom on a map. It was a warning written in fire and stone. This was a civilization that rose from the dust of Mesopotamia and turned war into a science. While others built walls to protect themselves, the Assyrians built machines to break them. Their kings spoke not of peace but of conquest, of cities turned to ash and enemies reduced to silence. In their chronicles, victory was never enough. They sought domination so complete that even memory would bow. To them, battle was not chaos. It was order, a calculated art, sharpened through fear and perfected by generations. And behind every victory stood the same belief, that no wall was high enough, no fortress strong enough to stop the iron will of Assyria. Across the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, cities rose like islands of stone, each surrounded by walls that promised safety. Massive gates, towers, and moats stood as the pride of kings who believed their cities were untouchable. Behind those walls, people slept believing that stone could keep out fear. They thought height meant strength, that thickness meant eternity. But the Assyrians saw those same walls differently. To them, they were not obstacles, they were challenges. Every fortress was a test of ingenuity, every barrier a puzzle to be solved. As other armies camped outside for months, waiting for hunger to win their wars, the Assyrians built, planned, and learned. Their eyes measured the stones, their minds mapped every weakness. For when the world hid behind its walls, Assyria was already searching for the way through. At dawn, the horizon trembled. From the dust they came, ranks of soldiers moving like a single creature of iron and discipline. Banners of Assyria fluttered beneath the rising sun, and the ground shook under their march. The air filled with the rhythm of tools, not just weapons but instruments of construction. Because when Assyria went to war, it brought not only warriors but engineers, builders, and visionaries. Before the city walls they stopped, calm, precise, and patient. Where others saw a fortress, they saw a project. Where others saw fear, they saw design. Orders were given. Wood was cut. Pits were dug. Ramps began to rise. The siege had begun, not with chaos but with calculation. And within the walls, those who once believed themselves safe watched as Assyria began to build their doom. Day after day, the sound of hammer and saw filled the plains. Timber turned into frames, frames into giants, towering machines unlike anything the world had seen before. These were the siege towers of Assyria, monuments not of worship, but of war. Each one rolled forward on heavy wheels, wrapped in wet hides to resist fire, its heart filled with archers, spearmen, and the fury of an empire that refused to wait. While other armies starved outside city walls, Assyria built, innovated, advanced. From their towers, arrows rained like black storms. Engines of stone hurled destruction into the sky, and as the towers inched closer, their shadows fell upon the trembling walls, a moving omen of collapse. When others waited, Assyria invented siege towers, and through invention, they conquered. The battle no longer waited. The air turned thick with smoke, and the sky rumbled with the sound of stone meeting stone. From atop the walls, defenders hurled fire, oil, and curses, but below the Assyrians answered with precision. Archers shielding the engineers, catapults pounding the gates, and rams striking again and again until wood splintered like bone. Flaming arrows cut through the dark, tracing arcs of light before vanishing into chaos. Every sound was a rhythm, the thud of the ram, the crack of stone, the scream of command. The city burned from the outside in, and through the smoke, the Assyrian banners still advanced, slow, unstoppable, indifferent to flame or fear. For in the empire's eyes, destruction was not rage, it was progress. The Assyrian engineers moved with precision, assembling towers on wheels, reinforcing them with wet hides, and rigging complex pulley systems. Every component was designed to withstand the impact of stone, flame, and resistance from the defenders. Each tower was more than wood and iron. It was a carefully calculated machine, a testament to planning, discipline, and understanding of physics. Soldiers adjusted levers and braces, coordinating every movement, as if the structure were an extension of their own bodies. The walls of the city loomed above, formidable and confident, unaware that every bolt, every rope, every axle had been crafted to turn their strength into vulnerability. Here the raw power of Assyria met the intellect of its engineers. Destruction was no longer random. It was orchestrated, predictable, and inevitable. At the heart of the siege stood the massive battering rams, covered with metal and guided beneath protective shields. Soldiers pushed in unison, each strike pounding against the gates with relentless force. The rhythm of impact echoed through the courtyard, a calculated drumbeat of destruction. Every blow chipped away at stone and wood, bringing the walls closer to collapse. The defenders strained against the assault, but the precision of Assyrian engineering and the strength of their troops made resistance seem futile. As the rams swung again and again, it became clear that the fortress's fate was no longer a matter of chance. It was written in the very momentum of Assyria's machines and soldiers. The Assyrian engineers and soldiers moved as one, a disciplined force trained not only to fight, but to construct and destroy with equal skill. Every plank lifted, every tower advanced, every ram positioned reflected years of rigorous training and meticulous planning. These men were more than workers or soldiers. They were the embodiment of Assyria's will, capable of turning strategy into action and action into devastation. Each movement carried the weight of the empire's ambition and the certainty of the wall's eventual surrender. In their hands, wood and iron became instruments of inevitability. The fortress that had seemed impenetrable now faced not just brute force, but the calculated precision of those who understood destruction as both craft and duty. The builders pressed on, unwavering, their labor a silent testament to the empire's relentless pursuit of dominance. Assyria did not rely on force alone. Fear was a weapon as sharp as any sword, designed to break the spirit before the walls even fell. Messages carved into stone, heads displayed on stakes, and relentless displays of power sent a clear warning to all who might resist. The defenders could see the consequences of defiance before the battle even began. Every act, every symbol was calculated to erode morale, to plant doubt, and to make surrender seem the only rational choice. This was warfare on a mental plane, as much about controlling perception as it was about crushing walls. The empire understood that the mind could fall faster than stone, and that terror could turn a stronghold into an empty shell long before the gates gave way. Assyria's strategy extended beyond the battlefield. It reached into the hearts of men, reshaping fear into a tool as deadly as the siege engines themselves. The siege reached its peak as the towers pressed against the walls, and the battering rams struck with unrelenting force. Stone cracked and splintered, gates groaned, and the defenders' resistance began to falter. Assyrian soldiers surged forward with precision, exploiting every breach, every weakness revealed by their machines and strategy. The fortress that had seemed impregnable now gave way under calculated pressure, each wall a testament to the inevitability of the empire's power. As the gates fell, the city opened to the conquerors. What remained was not just the result of physical force, but the culmination of planning, engineering, and psychological dominance. The fall was swift, decisive, and complete, marking another triumph in Assyria's relentless expansion. Once the gates were breached, Assyrian soldiers moved through the city with purpose. The spoils of conquest were claimed, but the victory was more than material. Every act served as a demonstration, a warning to those who might resist next. Messages were left carved into walls, symbols of power meant to instill fear and respect in equal measure. The city became a living testament to Assyria's reach, a record not only of their conquest, but of the consequences of defiance. Through plunder and proclamation, the empire extended its influence. Each captured city carried a lesson for the next. Assyria did not merely break walls, it broke will, ensuring that the memory of their dominance endured far beyond the battlefield. Assyria's campaigns were not sustained by brute force alone. They thrived on organization and logistics. Supply lines, wagons, and carefully coordinated signals ensured that armies could march, fight, and resupply with precision over months. Every detail was calculated. Food, weapons, and communication moved seamlessly to support the front lines. Soldiers and engineers alike operated within a system that maximized effectiveness while minimizing wasted effort. This efficiency turned prolonged sieges into predictable operations, where victory was not left to chance. The empire's ability to plan, sustain, and execute complex campaigns set it apart, demonstrating that conquest was as much about strategy and organization as it was about strength. The innovations of Assyria did not vanish with the empire. Their techniques, refined over generations, became templates for future civilizations. Babylon, Persia, and Rome would study and adapt the same methods, applying them to their own campaigns. The principles of mobility, engineering, and psychological strategy endured, proving that knowledge could outlast even the fall of a civilization. The walls that once seemed insurmountable inspired ingenuity, and the lessons learned in smoke and fire echoed across history. From the ashes of Nineveh rose the understanding that warfare was as much about intelligence and planning as it was about strength. Assyria's legacy was not only conquest, but the codification of siegecraft itself, a blueprint that would shape battlefields for centuries to come. Even the mighty towers that once struck fear across the lands were not eternal. In time, rebellions and internal strife brought flames to the same siege engines that had toppled countless walls. What had been symbols of unstoppable power became ruins, smoldering reminders of impermanence. The empire that built its fame on ingenuity and terror now faced the consequences of history's cycles. Towers that inspired awe were reduced to ashes, yet their memory persisted, a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and the inevitable passage of time. In the destruction of their own creations, the story of Assyria reminded all who observed, even the greatest might fall, but the lessons and innovations they leave behind endure. The walls may have fallen, and the empire itself eventually faded, but the knowledge and methods of Assyria lived on. Every siege that followed, every engineer who studied their towers and rams, carried a fragment of their genius forward. Assyria's influence reached beyond mere conquest. Their strategies, their precision, and their psychological insight became a legacy, proof that while walls can stop men, they cannot stop ideas. In the echoes beyond the ruins, the empire whispered its enduring truth. Destruction may be fleeting, but the art of siege, the intelligence behind it, and the fear it instilled remain immortal, shaping every battlefield that followed.